Okay, today we're diving into a force that's so powerful it can make or break any new project in your company. But here's the catch. It's almost completely invisible. Yep, we're talking about workplace culture and its constant epic battle with change.
So have you ever been there? The company rolls out what seems like a totally simple, logical update. A new piece of software or a tiny shift in policy. And what happens? Suddenly, it's chaos. There's confusion, pushback, and just a lot of grumbling in the break room. It seems like it shouldn't be a big deal, but it happens all the time. Well, the secret is, it's not really about the change itself. It's about what that change is running headfirst into. This powerful, invisible force that quietly dictates how everything really gets done. So, to figure out why we resist change, we first have to decode that invisible force. We've got to understand organizational culture. This is where the real story begins.
So what is it, really? The easiest way to think about it is like a company's personality, or its DNA. It's the whole system of shared values and beliefs that guides how people actually behave when the boss isn't looking. It's the unspoken way we do things around here. And what's so fascinating is that the most important rules, you won't find them written down in any employee handbook. Nope. Culture is something you absorb just by being there, through observation and interaction. And it gets passed along in 4 really key ways.
First up, we learn it through stories. Every single workplace has its legends, right? That time a small team pulled an all-nighter to land a huge client, or how the founder took a massive risk that paid off. But what's really interesting is that sometimes the stories about the epic failures are even more powerful. They teach everyone what not to do and where the real lines are drawn.
Next, you've got rituals. These are all the repeated activities that reinforce what's important. It could be something super formal, like an annual awards night that celebrates the top salespeople. Or it could be as simple as the whole team grabbing pizza together every single Friday. These little routines, they make the company's values feel real.
Then there are the symbols. Seriously, the physical world around you at work is constantly talking. An open-plan office literally screams collaboration, while a huge corner office sends a pretty clear message about hierarchy. Even something as small as who gets a reserved parking spot tells you a lot about what and who the company values.
And finally, there's language. Every organization developed its own unique dialect. The jargon, the acronyms, the inside jokes. Knowing this special language is a huge part of fitting in. It's like a secret handshake that signals you're part of the tribe, that you get how things really work.
So, how does this super powerful culture stay so strong? Well, it pretty much boils down to 3 things. First, through selection. Companies just naturally tend to hire people who already seem like a good fit. Then, top management sets the example. What leaders do is way more important than what they say. And finally, through socialization, new hires are taught the cultural ropes from their very first day of orientation.
And that, right there, that sets up the central conflict, doesn't it? On one hand, you have this stable, self-healing system called culture. And on the other, you have this constant, unstoppable pressure for things to change. When those two forces collide, you're going to get sparks.
This brings us right to the heart of it. Why do we and our organizations instinctively push back against change, even when we know it's probably for the best?
First off, let's be super clear. Change isn't optional these days. It is driven by these relentless external forces, things like new technology, fierce global competition, shifting social trends, and, of course, big economic shocks. So organizations have to adapt to survive. But that doesn't make it any easier.
So this resistance to change, it really comes from 2 places. On the individual side, it's just human nature. We are creatures of habit. Change feels uncertain, and it can threaten our sense of security. But there's also organizational resistance. This is where you see things like structural inertia. Just think of it like this. A company's rules, its departments, its power structures, they're all designed to keep things stable and predictable. So of course they're going to push back against anything new. The key thing to remember is that this resistance isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's a totally natural reaction. And the good news is it can be managed. So how do you actually do it? How do you manage it? Well, it's definitely not about using brute force. It's about having a smart, thoughtful framework to help guide everyone through the transition.
And this framework, it all starts with understanding the human side of change. It's about moving people from a place of resistance to a place of acceptance. And lucky for us, there are proven ways to get that done.
The most effective tactics are, at their core, all about people.
You have to communicate openly and honestly, explain why this is happening. You've got to involve people in the process. That creates a real sense of ownership. You need to build a solid support system with plenty of training and coaching. And maybe most importantly, you have to implement the change fairly. Trust is absolutely your most valuable currency here. Now, if you can wrap all these tactics into a simple but powerful model, you can make a huge difference. Let's look at one of the most classic and effective frameworks out there for actually structuring this whole process.
It's beautifully simple. First, you unfreeze the way things are now. This is the critical first step, where you shake things up a bit. You show everyone why the old way just isn't working anymore. Next comes movement. This is the actual transition phase, where you introduce the new ways of working, but you do it with all that support and communication we just talked about. And finally, and this is the step so many leaders forget, you refreeze. You have to make the change permanent. You solidify it as the new normal by building it into new routines, new policies, and new company rituals.
So, when you boil it all down, the single most important point is this. Change is not just a technical problem to be solved, it is a cultural journey. You can't just install new software or send out a memo. To truly master change, you have to work with your company's culture, its stories, its rituals, its language, to guide people from the old way to the new.
And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. Think about your own workplace. What are the stories you all tell? What are the rituals you follow every day? And now that you know all this, what part of that culture is helping you move forward? And what part, just maybe, is holding you back?